When you think of branding, what comes to mind? Maybe a logo, a color palette, or a catchy slogan. But what if I told you your brand is not what you say it is, but what people remember about you? Now, you already have a brand. Even if you've never hired a designer, written a tagline, or even thought much about marketing, your business has a brand because a brand isn't just a logo, it's not a color palette, it's not even your clever slogan. A brand is what people remember about you when you are not in the room. It's what they expect when they walk through your door or land on your website or pick up the phone ready to call you. Whether you've shaped it intentionally or not, your brand is already out there. It's living in the mind of your consumers, your customers, your community, and even your competitors. Now, in this video, I want to help you to understand what branding really is, especially if you're a small or mid-sized business trying to build something that lasts. Now, the first thing to remember is that you don't own your brand, your customers do. Now, there are ways that you can influence that, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but a brand is the feeling they get when they see your name, or they hear a story about you, or they think about buying from you again. From a business perspective, branding, the work we do to shape the brand, is the work we do to shape that perception. It's the intentional efforts that we build to build trust or recognition or emotional connection over time. Now, this does include things like your visual identity, the logos, the colors, the fonts, and the way things are set up on your website. It includes your messaging, what you say and how you say it. It also includes your customer experiences, how people feel when they interact with you. But truthfully, that's kind of only half the picture, and maybe not even that. Because from the customer's side, a brand is much more personal. It's their lived experience of engaging with you. It's their answer to questions like, do I trust this business? Or will they deliver on their promise? Or what can I expect actually when I engage with them? How do they make me feel? And how can I engage with others? How do they compare with others that I also engage with? Now think about it, you already have strong feelings about certain businesses, some positive and some, well, maybe not so much. And those feelings or those connections you have, that's the brand. In other words, your brand is your business's reputation, and branding is that reputation made visible. Just like any reputation, it's shaped by consistency, by character, and by follow-through, not just by some catchy language or polished design alone. So if your brand lives in the minds of your customers, how do you actually shape it? Well, in my work with business owners, I found that branding really comes down to two different things. First, it's setting some expectations, and second, creating associations. First, actually setting expectations and then fulfilling or exceeding those. So let's talk about those expectations. When someone engages with you, they're not just hoping for a product or service, they're expecting an experience. And branding is how you set those expectations intentionally and consistency. Think about some of the restaurants that you engage with, someone like McDonald's. They don't promise gourmet meals, but they do promise speed, consistency, and familiarity. And that promise, well, it's delivered billions of times a year in nearly every country. And it's the expectations you have that are fulfilled that actually makes you make positive connections with that particular brand. Every strong brand builds a kind of contract with its customers. This is what you can count on from us. And when you meet that expectation, you build trust. When you exceed it, you build loyalty. And when you miss it, you create friction and often frustration and complaints. Now, expectations alone aren't enough, and that's kind of where the second part comes in, because branding is also about creating associations. See, our brains are wired for connection. We make sense of new things by linking them to what we already know. So great brands don't just stand out, they try to tap into things. They attach themselves to ideas or emotions or values that we already recognize. Harley-Davidson, for example, tries to connect freedom and rebellion with their motorcycles. Volvo links itself to safety and family protection. Nike is not just about shoes or clothes, it's about drive, resilience, and inner strength, about pushing through. Now, none of that comes from the product or the features alone. It comes from branding, from the intentional effort from someone to associate your business with something that resonates deeply, to take that emotion and to connect it in some way, shape, or form. So when you're branding your business, you need to ask yourself these two questions. What promises are we making? Are we keeping them? And what are we asking people to associate with us? And does that feel authentic? Because branding isn't just what you say, it's what you signal, and it's what sticks. Now, this is where colors and logos and these other things can come in, because we associate certain things and feelings with certain colors and certain experiences and certain logos and certain frames of reference. And these things then can connect to your brand subconsciously in certain ways. It's why some of the biggest brands don't actually brand, or they don't actually advertise their products necessarily in their advertisements. They advertise connections. Now, here's something most brand strategy books won't tell you. Your customer doesn't care about your brand guide. They don't sit around reading your mission statement. They often don't even try to dig through and figure out what you're trying to do with your website or with your visuals or your colors. They don't memorize your values. They don't admire your color palette, at least not consciously. But what they do notice is how your business makes them feel every single time they interact with you. Because that email that you forgot to reply to, or maybe that warm welcome at the front desk, these two things shape expectations. And that moment when your team went the extra mile, or maybe they didn't, that's also branding. Branding lives in the details, the way you answer the phone, the way you return your phone calls, the tone of your social media replies, how your product is even packaged, how you respond when something goes right or when something goes wrong. Those little moments shape how people remember you and whether they come back. So while you can't necessarily control your brand, you can engage in branding, which helps to shape what people think. So yeah, your design matters and messaging matters, but what matters most is that the experience matches the promise. Okay, so we've talked about branding and we've talked about expectations and associations, but the next question becomes, how do you actually shape how people see you? And what choices do you need to make, or how do you set yourself apart? Now, this is where brand positioning comes in. This is how you decide what your brand stands for in the minds of your customers. It's about owning a particular idea, value, or maybe angle in the market, so that when people think of your business, that idea comes to mind. Now, here's the key. There's no one right way to position a brand. It depends on who you are, what you offer, and who you're trying to reach. It also depends on the marketplace, the other kinds of competitors that are around you, and if there's kind of a hole in the market or a place where others aren't fulfilling on certain expectations. Now, over the years, I've worked with business owners using all kinds of strategies, but most of them fall into one of these kind of 11 classic approaches. And we'll walk through each one briefly, kind of with real-world examples that you'll probably recognize. Now, the first is kind of against brand positioning. It's where you define yourself by what you're not. It's kind of like how Canadians often define themselves by not being American. It's where you highlight the flaws or maybe the gaps in an existing solution, and then you position yourself as the alternative. It's like saying, we're not your traditional accountant. We speak human, not spreadsheet. This works well if your industry is kind of dominated by big players who've maybe lost touch in certain ways, but use it carefully, because if it comes off as arrogant or maybe overly critical, it can backfire. And besides, there's enough negativity around right now. Let's try to maybe find other ways to do it. Now, the second one is kind of this hyper-specialized brand positioning. This is about narrowing your focus. You don't try to serve everyone. You serve a very specific niche, and you do it deeply and you do it well. Maybe you're a bookkeeping firm that only works with independent wellness professionals, or a graphic designer who only builds brands for food startups or brand packages for food startups. The upside is you become the go-to expert in that particular niche. The risk is that a smaller market often doesn't create certain things, but it does offer higher loyalty and maybe less competition. Now, the third one is kind of a leader-based brand positioning. This is where you claim the top spot. You position yourself as the industry leader. Maybe you've got the most experience, or the highest satisfaction scores, or the biggest client list, or you've sold the most product, or whatever. If it works, and if you can prove it, then it's good. If you have awards or testimonials or market share, but you have to be careful, because if the evidence doesn't support the claim, it weakens trust instead of building it. Now, the fourth option is price-based brand positioning. This is where you lead with price, either the lowest or maybe the best value for money. Think of like budget airlines or discount retailers, or maybe even pay what you can kinds of models. This approach is simple and it's direct, but it only works long-term if your cost structure can really support it. Otherwise, your margins kind of collapse fast and it's a race to the bottom with the least amount of margin, and then that's hard to create good profit on. The fifth is quality-based brand positioning. This is the opposite from price-based. You position yourself maybe as the premium choice. You're not the cheapest, but you're the best. You rely on craftsmanship, on consistency, or results that justify a higher price. Now, the challenge in this is you've got to deliver every single time. People will pay more, but only if the experience feels worth it. Now, the sixth option is kind of a value-based brand positioning. This one's about balance. You get a lot for what you pay. So it's not luxury, you're not leaning into quality, but it's also not bargain basement, you're not leading with price. It's about solid value. Maybe think of your favorite neighborhood restaurant. It's not fancy, but it also never lets you down, and it's not the cheapest either. This is a great position if your audience is value conscious but still cares about quality, so they want to get the most for their money. Now, seventh is kind of benefit-based brand positioning. Here you focus on one key benefit you offer and you own it. Maybe you save people time in the long term, or you reduce stress, or you offer peace of mind. Now, don't try to be everything, just make one compelling promise and become known for it. And this often doesn't have much to do with a feature, it's what happens in their life because of what you do. Now, this works beautifully when your audience has a clear, pressing need and your solution speaks directly to it, and you can make those associations really clear. Now, the eighth is kind of a disruptive brand positioning. This one's for the rebels, for those who are innovative or doing things differently on purpose. They shake up the market by questioning norms. Think of companies like Warby Parker, they kind of upset the eyeglass industry, or maybe the Dollar Shave Club. They're disrupting big industries with a completely new model. This creates attention, but it also creates resistance. So make sure your audience is ready for the change that you are bringing into that particular space. Now, the ninth one is convenience-based brand positioning. This one's simple. You make life easier. You save time, you reduce friction, you remove complexity. Think of something like online booking for travel websites, or same-day delivery, or very clear instructions that are offered within a particular piece. Convenience is a powerful motivator, especially for a busy customer, but only if it's truly effortless. These kind of half-baked, easy experiences just lead to frustration. If you're told that it's easy and then you find it difficult to actually book online, that's not going to work. Now, the 10th is kind of problem-solution selling. You're not just selling a product, you're solving a particular problem. So there you start with the pain point and then you show how your offer removes it. The strategy is clear, compelling, and it's customer-focused. This is actually my favorite kind of positioning. But it only works if the problem you solve is important and visible. If the audience doesn't know they have a problem, then they won't look for a solution. And then you got to convince them they have a problem before you can convince them that your solution helps them. Now, the 11th is a celebrity-driven brand positioning. This is where you find a celeb and you borrow trust by associating with someone people already admire. This could be an influencer, a local hero, a well-known personality in your particular space. It creates instant credibility because there's an association made, but it also comes with risk, because if the person stumbles or people don't associate well with that particular thing, your brand might stumble too. Also, this approach really only works if the audience actually cares about who you're connected to. Within certain industries or products, that doesn't really matter, and so this wouldn't really work. So those are kind of the 11 different categories. Some of them kind of overlap others, and none of them are really inherently better than others. But the real question is, which one fits your business and your values? Because I think the best branding strategy isn't just strategic, it's true. It reflects who you really are, what you believe, and how you show up. Now, let me offer you a perspective that you don't often hear enough in branding conversations, in my opinion. Your brand is one of the most powerful ways your business can make a positive impact in the world. Because when branding is just about selling more, it burns people out. You start chasing trends, mimicking competitors, and losing the plot in your business and in the minds of those who follow you. But when branding reflects something deeper, your values, your purpose, and the real good you want to do in the world, it energizes everything. Now that's what I would call impact-focused branding. It's not about virtue signaling or trying to say something that you're not. It's not about plastering the word authentic on your homepage either. It's about alignment. It's about making sure that the promises you make through your branding actually match the impact you want to have on your customers, your team, and your community. Not just the ones you want to have, but the actual impact you do have. And here's the big payoff. When your branding is aligned with your purpose, the impact you want to have, you stop feeling like you're performing and you start feeling like you're showing up. It becomes easier to make decisions, easier to connect with the right people, easier to build something that lasts, easier to be authentic in all of your interactions and to make sure that all of the touch points along the customer journey actually match what you're trying to say. Because people don't just want to buy what you sell, they want to believe in why you do it. They want to join you in having an impact in the world, even if for them, most of that impact really only relates to them particularly. Sure, they might care about the world, but they actually care more about what you can do for them, which I think is why that kind of problem-solution branding probably works the best from an impact perspective. Now, if any of this has struck a chord, if you're realizing that your brand might be misaligned with your values or maybe unclear to the people you most want to serve, don't stress about it, but that's where the real work begins, and it's good work. Now, to help with that, I've created a simple free tool called the Impact Focused Business Self-Assessment. This is an assessment that you can go through. It takes about 10 minutes, and it'll help you see where your business is strong in trying to create an impact, and maybe where things feel fuzzy or inconsistent. It'll also highlight where a small shift in focus might unlock much more clarity. You can find it at purposepivot.ca. It takes about 10 minutes, and it's a great way to figure out where your brand stands and where you'd like it to go next. Because your brand is already saying something. Let's make sure it's saying the right thing.